I have this new book called The Metaphysical Christian, and it's written by this lady named Charlotte McGuire Goodwin. Let's read a little bit. I have the core Christian belief that God is the basis of all things, and Jesus Christ, the Son of God, is my Lord and Savior. Simultaneously, I believe that God blessed me with the spiritual metaphysical gifts of hearing and seeing spirits and feeling the presence of spiritual energy, so that I am a vessel used by Spirit for communicating with and healing others. This combination of having traditional Christian beliefs and possessing metaphysical gifts caused me continually conflict and fear from my childhood to adulthood. While growing up in a strict Christian home with a Southern Baptist preacher father who led me to believe that only sinners against God claimed to possess such abilities. Not until 1997, when I was 51 years old, did I disclose to family, friends, and the general public my involvement in metaphysical spirituality. Though I have now been a healing practitioner for 22 years, I am still confronted by people who feel a conflict exists between Christianity and metaphysical spirituality. People have reacted to my disclosure in a variety of ways, ranging from acceptance and polite skepticism to disgust and criticism. I've been called a witch and told I've walked with Satan. Skeptics have asked, "How is that possible? Are you making things up? How can you call yourself a Christian?" Each incident of disbelief and skepticism I've encountered, especially since 1997, has caused me to doubt myself, question my abilities, and wonder why God chose someone like me to do his handiwork. But I have gradually come to realize that God opens the door for many to be his tools. They have to listen and be available. Further, I believe God chooses many people to help others understand they are allowed to combine belief in Christianity with metaphysical spirituality, and that as long as their intentions come from a spiritual place, they need not fear indulging their curiosity about spiritual modalities or embracing their metaphysical spiritual experiences. It is written in the Bible that it is God who guides their path to discovery. Now there are a variety of gifts, but the same Spirit. 1 Corinthians 12:4. And there are varieties of service, but the same Lord. 1 Corinthians 12:5. And there are a variety of working, but it is the same God who inspires them all and every one. 1 Corinthians 12:6. In the early stages of my development as a spiritual healer, I questioned the validity of my experiences and abilities and thought perhaps I was fantasizing. Now, after years of self-discovery, I can say empathetically, I am a metaphysical Christian. The term I use is define my combined religious and metaphysical spiritual beliefs. Although arduous at times, the last 22 years have given me the confidence and comfort to embrace my spiritual evolution and still stay true to my core Christian belief in God and Jesus Christ. I have navigated and meddling of my Christian beliefs and metaphysical gifts through conversations with God, Jesus, and the spirits of the Christ light. I'm neither a religious scholar nor philosopher. This book is not intended to challenge the Bible or any other religious tenet. I have written this book because I have been approached time and time again with the same question with which I personally grappled during childhood and adulthood. Will God be vengeful if I seek guidance or healing from a spiritual practitioner? Will I be condemned to hell if I have metaphysical experiences or gifts? Wondering if I have an anomaly because I believe in Christianity and metaphysical spirituality simultaneously. I emailed a survey to people I already knew and people I didn't know, but whose contact information I had, hoping to find out what others thought about combining beliefs in organized religion and metaphysical spirituality. To me, the most important question in the survey, along with their responses, were the following. Were you raised in a strong Christian environment? The overwhelming response was yes. The people who said no practiced their faith on a regular basis. Only one claimed to be an atheist. Have you personally had a psychic, spiritual, metaphysical, or paranormal experience? 63% answered yes. Some describe many episodes in detail, and others said there were too many to count. Do you believe there are many people who can see, hear, feel, or communicate with the spirit realm or the spirit world? 84% said yes. Some even said they had communicated with the spirit world. Do you feel the Bible is a total truth? 90% said they believed in the possibility of mistranslations. The major opinion was that the Bible had been written by man for man and translated many times into different languages, and the numerous books in the Bible had been deleted for various reasons. So the Bible was not the absolute truth, but being an old document, must contain many truths and be divinely inspired. There were people who shared their fear about asking for a spiritual or psychic reading or an energy healing because their religion considered this a sin. Others had metaphysical experiences but were afraid to tell anyone about them. I was surprised by the outcome of this research. It suggested that many people are open to metaphysical spiritual principles and practices, but need an explanation of their compatibility with organized religion. Overall, the survey reinforced my own simultaneous beliefs in Christianity and metaphysical phenomena, as well as the responsibility I felt to write the Metaphysical Christian. My primary purpose in writing this book is to offer understanding and comfort to those who have traditional religious beliefs and are concerned about learning about or engaging with metaphysical spirituality. I hope to reassure people who feel a conflict between religious teachings and metaphysical spirituality that it is okay with God to believe in and practice both simultaneously, for God encompasses all spiritual activities in His name. Another purpose of this book is to help those who have family and friends with metaphysical gifts better understand and appreciate that God embraces the ones to whom He has given these gifts and experiences. The Metaphysical Christian seeks to bridge the divide between embracing Christian divinity and embracing metaphysical spirituality, revealing the teachings of God's angels and spiritual messengers, that all religions walk hand in hand with metaphysical spirituality, and that no one needs to be afraid of such a path. Chapter 1. Early Encounters with Spiritual Contradictions. My parents believed in attending church on Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, and Wednesday evenings. I sat in the congregation at a young age listening to the preacher's sermons. Most of the time I had no idea of their meaning, but occasionally I understood the word sin and the phrase born with sin, both also used by my father. As I grew in age and understanding, I learned that Baptists believe children are born with original sin. So in my mind, the preacher and my father thought I had been a sinner since birth. At the age of 6, without my full understanding of how I had been sinful, my father insisted I was baptized so I could be saved. Too young to go against anything taught by my father or the church, I complied. In retrospect, I believe that this is when I first began to question the reasoning of the church and my father, wondering how I could be a sinner as I was just a little girl. Similarly, my husband has expressed dismay with the Catholic Church's teaching that all children are born with original sin, telling me, when I was a child, my parents made me go to confession every week. I didn't know what to say to the priest because I didn't know how I had sinned. I made things up to confess. In researching the concept of original sin in the Bible, I came across what appeared to be two contradictory verses. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. The soul that sins shall die. The son shall not suffer for the iniquity of the father, nor the father suffer for the iniquity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be made upon himself, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon himself. Ezekiel 18 and 20. The first verse says people have original sin at conception. The second one indicates that people do not inherit the sin of their parents or vice versa. Considering these seemingly contradictory teachings, it is no wonder that people are confused by the Bible-based teachings of the church. Confusion and contradictions regarding religious teachings led me to question the beliefs or organized religion early in life before I had heard of metaphysical spirituality. Not until I was an adult did I know that my experiences of spirituality were different from those of most individuals, and I needed answers that organized religion couldn't give me. Fearing I would be ridiculed and knowing she wouldn't believe me, I never divulged my metaphysical experiences during childhood to my mother, who came from a devout Christian family. Consequently, she had no idea that the imaginary children with whom I often played weren't imaginary but spirits. My father seemed to notice that I had unusual awareness as a child, though we never discussed it. I remember going with him on business appointments. Others gave me the nickname Mac's shadow because I was always by his side. Too young at, at age 4, to comprehend his reason. I eventually learned he wanted me to meet his prospective business partners because of my intuitive abilities. One day I heard him say, "If Charlotte doesn't like them, I don't want to do business with them. She has an uncanny knowing of people's intentions before I do." He never asked or discussed with me what I knew or how I knew it, perhaps just accepting my ability as a child's intuition. Much later, when my mother visited me at my home in California in 1999 for Christmas, she confirmed for me my early gifts for metaphysical experiences. Before time for her to return to Dallas, she became ill and I took her to my doctor. Upon his advice, she stayed in California in my care until she felt well enough to travel. Her extended stay gave us time to explore a subject about which I had many questions: her childhood and life before my birth. One afternoon, while she rested and I sat in a chair by her bed, she spoke about the day of my birth, describing how on that day, in early July in Lawton, Oklahoma, it was windy and 114 degrees conditions that added to the discomfort of her pregnancy. When she went into labor, her older sister drove her to the hospital. In the early morning of July the 7th, 1946, she gave birth to me. When she and my father knew I was a girl, the previously chosen name of Charles Thomas McGuire became Charlotte Ann McGuire. 5 days later, my mother and I, both deemed healthy, were released from the hospital. I'd always had an uncanny memory of leaving the hospital that day, and now shared the vivid vision I'd had most of my life with my mother, saying, "I remember someone carrying me down a brightly lit hallway towards a large set of double doors. I saw the person's arms jut outward and push one of the doors open, allowing us to exit the building. Once outside, the person holding me stood on a cement landing bordered on two sides by tall evergreen shrubs. I saw a flight of concrete steps with a dark handrail. Rather than descending the steps to the sidewalk and street below, the person continued to stand on the landing. The brightness of the sun made me squint, but I looked at the enormous blue sky for the first time. "That's right," she confirmed. "But how did you know? Babies don't have the ability to remember those kind of things." Mother's confirmation of my vision gave me great reassurance about the truth of my early experiences. I had long questioned the validity, and now I knew that my extraordinary experiences of awareness had begun shortly after my birth. But my mother's question about how I knew made me uneasy about potentially being accused of having gifts she regarded as a sin against God. How could I explain to her, a devout Christian, that Spirit had shown me a video of that day? I wondered. Fortunately, she was too tired at the time to ask for further explanation. Looking back on that conversation, I've often wondered how I would have answered if Mother had persisted with her questions about my ability to see such a vision. It was still too early in my spiritual development to be able to explain how I could worship my Christian God and yet be privy to metaphysical spiritual experiences. That day I realized that I could not open my mother's mind to belief in these incidents. It was apparent that due to her devout Christian upbringing, the door to other wisdoms would remain closed. Only later in my spiritual development did my relationship with God and Jesus Christ change from one of fear of condemnation to one of unconditional love. I learned from the teaching of spirits that the gifts bestowed on me as a child did not make me a sinner, that babies are not born with original sin. Thus, my childhood concerns about being born a sinner and being a sinner as a child were laid to rest, and I was given reassurance of God's acceptance for possessing metaphysical gifts. That was part 1. I'll come back for part 2.